Hello, everyone. I'm Father Alexander Hart, rector of St. John the Divine Episcopal Church in Sun City Center.
And I am Dave Marshall, rector of All Angels by the Sea, Longboat Key. It is not a gorgeous day, but a wonderful day to be on the island. Plenty of
Well,
parking. Come on out. It is
exactly.
gray and overcast. We had a massive rainstorm yesterday. I'm glad you all are here, whether today is a Saturday and you woke up as a preacher and you went, oh my goodness, I have nothing to preach on. It's at a Thursday and you just decided to look at the gospel. Or are you one of those that are just interested in hearing what the lessons are this Sunday so you can hear the message better? Whatever it is, you are welcome here. I'm glad you are at a bridge between.
Mm-hmm. Where we are bridging our knowledge of the scriptures, bridging our physical distance. And today we are bridging the distance between what we reap and what we sow.
And in fact, there is no distance between what we reap and sow.
It's a small bridge.
It's a small bridge. It is a great bridge of misunderstanding to think we can do one thing and get something else.
Well, we're talking about the Galatians reading today, and I'm sure we'll intersperse other texts in here. But before we get to the translation that you have, which I think is excellent, I really want to use that one when I preach this Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
There's just this idea that human beings, as a species, we are very good at rationalization. We can rationalize anything.
We can excuse-ize anything.
Well, I'm saying we can, in our minds,
right,
think it's rational. Right.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right.
I see what you mean.
We can pretend that there's not a connection between two things, right?
Sure.
That are clearly connected.
We can say it's a coincidence.
Right. And we can lie to ourselves. Just before we started recording, I said, the greatest lie humanity ever told itself was, I can have just one potato chip.
And wasn't it Jay Leno that did an ad campaign about bet you can't eat just one?
Right. Bet you can't eat just one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what we've been talking about a little bit this morning as we've been kind of getting ready for the episode is talking about this sense of what are the lies that we tell ourselves? What are the things that we're telling ourselves that prevent us from living into what is the truth, which is you reap what you sow. The things that you plant, the things that you prepare, that you start to live into, that's the fruit that's going to be borne out. You're not going to plant cucumbers and get French fries. I mean, that'd be kind of cool.
Oh, well, that would be cool. Yeah.
It'd be awkward. That's not going to happen.
Right.
And I think the church has a challenge, and it's a real difficulty to meet people where they are, but at the same time tell them there are consequences for the actions that you take. And they can be good consequences. Like if you start now doing certain positive things, then when you see positive fruit, hey, don't be surprised. The other thing is also true. I want to read that one section from Galatians, so then you can give the translation if that's all right.
Sure. Can I do a little bit of a background for,
yes.
Just say for my friend Linda, who isn't that familiar with what we're talking about with Galatians or any of that stuff. So this is in the New Testament. St. Paul, the Apostle Paul, planted a church in Galatia, right? If I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Galatia. Yeah.
And he has now gone away, and he is writing to them because, like most churches or movements, the first people who planted the church are very spirit-driven, and they love each other, and things are going great. And then as the church grows, they start to create institutional rules and things like that. And they start creating hierarchy, and like, we are the originals, we know better than you, all that type of stuff. So Paul's writing to them to stop a lot of that controversy. And some of it has to do with, should you be circumcised? Do you have to be circumcised? Can you simply be baptized and then you're in? That he's trying to answer a lot of those questions. This is near the end of Paul's life. I happen to believe that he had a disease of the eyes that made it difficult for him to read and also made him difficult to look at. And so he is actually, this is one of those letters where he is asking somebody to write it for him. And then in this passage, Paul wraps it up by writing with his own hand. And that translation got moved into, or that piece is still captured in our modern day Bibles, or where he was just writing his own little note to show to everybody, this is really me, this is really Paul.
Yeah.
But it's difficult for him to write nowadays because of this disease. So that is the whole sense of this letter and who he's writing to. And then the question is, why are we still reading it today? But
Yeah. And in the text he says, look at the big letters that I'm using. It is me. I mean,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't beat somebody's handwriting.
No. And in this particular letter, he talks a lot about the difference between living by the Spirit and living by the flesh. And while his flesh is kind of eating itself, with this really bad eye infection that he has, it's just intriguing to me about that. So, with all that in mind,
With all that in mind, which is very
Paul
good
then,
context, I'm gonna
right?
I'm
So we're in
gonna
chapter 6. We're at the end of the letter.
yeah. So it says, those who are taught the word must share in all good things with their teacher. And then it says, do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for you reap whatever you sow. If you sow to your own flesh, you will reap corruption from the flesh. But if you sow to the Spirit, you will reap eternal life from the Spirit. So let us not grow weary in doing what is right, for we will reap at harvest time if we do not give up. So then, whenever we have an opportunity, let us work for the good of all, and especially for those of the family of faith.
Excellent. Very good. So my favorite professor, Professor Woost, has come up with a translation for our language for today. And he begins this section with Paul, if you're writing today in our language, would
Mm-hmm,
write this, something similar to this. Stop leading yourselves astray.
mm-hmm,
God is not being outwitted. God cannot be evaded. For whatever a man is in the habit of sowing, this also he will reap. Okay, so stop leading yourselves astray. God is not being outwitted. God cannot be evaded. Whatever a man is in the habit of sowing, this also he can reap. It has a stronger sense to it that God will allow us to sleep in the bed that we made.
right. And I think that is where I find one of the biggest challenges in talking about Christianity to people who are facing difficult circumstances. Because if you are dealing with a person who there are things that have happened that are not their fault, that sometimes can be easier. That has its own challenges because now you're talking about why did God let this happen to me? And there's different questions about that.
Mhm.
But if a person has done something and it is literally their fault that they're in this situation, they drove drunk, they got arrested. Um, that actually can be more challenging sometimes, I think, because there are people who will say, well, why did God let this happen to me? And they can't see the connection that it's them.
Mhm. It's tough, and it's particularly difficult for those in the pastoral ministry to reply to every person who brings that up because you reap what you sow, right? It's so hard be, because we want to be kind and pastoral and
Mhm.
sit with them and to say everything's going to be fine. The flip side is that the very harsh reality of things on this world is that you reap what you sow. Um, so others would say, that guy is just always upbeat. She's always happy. She has a why does God shine on her more than me? And we can also answer because she is reaping what she is sowing. She is sowing kindness. She is finding peace, and it echoes out from her.
I think one of the best analogies that I can make to kind of explain some of this is I was a teacher for a few years, and I taught language arts, taught middle school. And one of the toughest things to do with students is to help them see consequences for what they did or didn't
Yeah,
do,
right.
right? And so when a student comes up to you and says, why did I get a D on my report card? Well, you say, well, let's take a look at the grade book, right? Missing assignment, missing assignment, missing assignment. Do you see a trend here? Right.
Yeah, right.
And you have two choices at that point if you're the student. You can either say, wow, like, I really messed up here. Like, I can't believe, I didn't turn these things in and this is my own fault. Or what's the other option?
To take responsibility.
Well, no. Well, the first one is taking responsibility. The second one is making excuses. Well, I was
Oh, I see what
tired,
you're saying. Okay.
that time, or I forgot to turn it in, or I gave it to you, but you didn't. It's always somebody else's fault.
Hmm.
And I think that is one of the biggest challenges that I see today with people is helping them practice accountability.
Yeah. And to get away from excuse-itis.
Yeah.
So,
And we're all guilty of it. I mean, I reap what I sow. I can assure you of that.
yeah, that all the time, I can come up with excuses for any number of things. I have a good imagination, so that can create any number of things. But again, uh, stop leading yourselves astray, writes Paul. You're not outwitting God. You're not evading God. You can't. You can't get away from God. You can't outwit God. Whatever you're in the habit of sowing, that's what you're going to reap.
So let's look at this from a positive perspective, because we looked at it from a negative perspective about things being people's fault and such like that. But
Okay.
the other side of it is also, if I begin to create good habits
Right.
within me,
Hmm.
be they about health, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health,
Hmm.
or just developing my prayer life, those types of things. What are some of the things that we see in the Christian life that we're called to do that have to do with sowing, that then end up reaping a great harvest of spiritual fruit?
Yes. Uh, the I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it, but the New York Times had a fascinating article talking about smoking. And
Okay.
all right, so you know that the number of Americans smoking has continually declined, which is good
Yep.
news on many fronts. The one area it has not declined in is in Hollywood. They continue to depict smoking as looking cool because let's be honest, it does look kind of cool, right? That
Yeah,
somebody who lights up, right? It's,
that's why it's in a
and
movie.
that's why it's in a movie or a TV show, and they
Yeah.
continue. Hollywood continues to show it. And what this particular article was saying is, Hollywood, will you please find something else that is cool? So I had read that article. Then I was on a cruise ship, and there was a couple sitting next to us in the stern. It's the Sunset Lounge, and we had
Yeah.
just watched the sunset. It was a beautiful, magical place. And so Christy got up to get some more iced tea, and the couple though sitting near us were younger and more physically fit. They just seemed to be on top of the world. And the one of the couple looked around, pulled out a little vaping pen,
That's what I
and
was going
then
to say.
vaped, right? And now we're on the stern of the ship, right? So all the smoke just goes, and there's only one designated smoking spot on this particular ship, and this wasn't it. But this particular person vaped, and then did that thing, and all the smoke came out. And I sat back and I thought, vaping is not cool. It doesn't look cool.
Well, not just that, but vaping is a lot worse
Oh
than
my gosh, it's a lot
smoking.
worse. Yeah, and so a different article that they had linked to this was to say the good news is that the minute you stop smoking, the minute you stop vaping, you get rid of your vape pen, is the minute that your body starts to repair itself, and that your body can heal and restore itself. But you have to stop, and if you don't stop, it will then continue to do that. And I was just hearing, you're reaping what you're sowing. And if you stop smoking, your body eventually can heal and repair. Now, you and I both have had and currently have parishioners who had a life of smoking
Yeah.
and have stopped. But then, 30 years down the road, some things have popped up. And so it's the positive side of that, metaphorically speaking, the way that your body can heal the minute you stop smoking or put the vape pen down. Same goes for other aspects of your life, where as soon as you stop doing this, your body can start to heal and to restore. And, so God's not being outwitted. God's not like, you know what, you smoked once, that's it, you're toast. I'm never going to, repair your body. No, it's the body can repair itself.
The other thing I would say is that when it comes to vaping, when it comes to drinking, when it comes to other things, we're also dealing with the fact that human beings have a tendency toward addiction. And
Yes, we do.
and when I think about the reaping what we sow, I think of situations where people have. There's even a wonderful collect, in the prayer book that talks about this. That people who are dealing with addiction, that they fall into these issues and sacrifice their freedom.
Right.
And what that means is that they may want to let it go. They may want to lay it down, but they can't. They don't have the power to do it on their own. And that's where, the first part of the reading, I think, really bears talking about as well, about bearing one another's burdens, is helping people to be free.
Mhm.
And how do we do that? Well, one way is to not put stumbling blocks in front of them. So Hollywood, don't show so many people smoking, but also don't be that person that's causing temptation in others.
Exactly.
Instead, be the person who's encouraging that person to say, hey, listen, I thought you quit. You sure you want to do that again? Um,
Mhm.
but that takes real friends. That
It
takes
it
real
takes
commitment from the people that love you. So I think that one of the things we should definitely be praying for in the church are those who find themselves in addiction. And here's what I like to tell people. Spoiler alert, we're all addicted to something. We all have addictions because we're sinners. We're addicted to sin. It's easy to look down on others and say, well, at least I'm not such and such person who they're an alcoholic. Well, their addiction may be alcohol. Your addiction may be something else, you know? So that's kind of one of the things I like people to remember when we talk about losing our freedom and reaping what we sow.
exactly. The second part of that passage, if you sow to your own flesh, you'll reap corruption from the flesh. If you sow to the Spirit, you will reap eternal life. The translation I like is this: because the one who sows with a view to his own flesh, from
Mhm.
his flesh as a source shall reap corruption. But the one who sows with a view to the Spirit, from the Spirit as a source shall reap life eternal.
Mhm.
There's a choice here. Viewing to one's own flesh, you shall reap the corruption of the flesh. Now, again, imagine Paul with this horrible eye disease that can't be cured, that he's thinking of that. But the one who sows with a view to the Spirit, from the Spirit as a source, shall reap eternal life eternal.
And that's the other part of the message in the gospel,
Mhm,
is helping people to see that whatever they're doing right now has eternal consequences.
mhm.
And living in a society where people will often ignore any concept of eternity, they're living for the now.
Mhm.
It's like, why am I worried about something that may never come? Why am I worried about something that somebody is telling me is true, which I don't even want to check and verify?
Right.
I'm worried about now.
Mhm. I know people who are living in the past. They're not
Well,
even
yeah.
living for the now. They're living for, I used to be this. I used to be able to do that. And then it's always an external thing. If not for that one person, I would still, right? That it's this is the same
Well,
type of.
actually, that reminds me of a great scene in the book The Great Divorce, where the narrator goes down to hell and notices a commonality among all the people in hell, which is you can have as much space as you want around you, build your own little kingdom if you want, and be all alone. And he comes across Napoleon, and Napoleon is just pacing around this room and saying it was England's fault, it was Russia's fault, it was Marshal Ney's fault, it was always somebody else's fault. It was never his fault.
If I was
And
born taller,
I just think to myself, like, how quick am I to just, when I find a situation that's wrong, do I say it's that person's fault, it's that person's fault, it's never my fault?
right? Uh, but the one who sows to the Spirit as a source, shall reap eternal life. That we again can do these things. You can live into the fruit of the Spirit with love and joy and peace, kindness and generosity, and if you live into that, you will reap what you sow. Speaking of, have you noticed that there are a whole plethora of karma jars sitting around? Right? You following what I'm saying? This might be a
Karma,
California thing.
karma jars.
Karma jars. So you go
Oh, like for
to
tipping?
for t- they're not calling it tipping. They're like karma.
Oh,
But
oh
the
yeah, I've seen those. I've
yeah,
seen
right.
those.
I don't understand. I went to a particular pharmacy. It wasn't the one we normally go to, and when you put the credit card in, it asked for if you wanted to tip the pharmacist. I went, "Are you kidding me?" Um, sorry, we just launched into a whole different topic.
That's a
I will
whole other
I will
topic.
now reap back to the spirit.
So,
But the sense of karma is you get what you deserve. And the cousin, the reason where this born out of is that you reap what you sow. And
well,
so
I talked about this yesterday a little bit about, I don't believe in karma because I don't think karma exists. I think you reap what you sow.
yeah,
But I think people wish karma existed because they ignore their own faults. So I don't actually want what I deserve. I don't
right.
deserve good. I'm a sinner. I mean, let's be honest here. This sounds a little Calvinistic, perhaps, but if I got what I actually deserved, I wouldn't like it.
No.
Um, Now, if I got what God gives through grace, that's very good.
Hmm.
But yeah, I want to turn, if we can, for the last portion together, talking a little bit about the gospel and how does this fit into what we're talking about, because it's, as we talked about, it's out of order. Jesus is sending out, um, sent out 70 others, and it's Luke 10, 1 through 11 and 16 through 20.
Hmm.
And it's talking about, I'm sending you in the midst as lambs in the midst of wolves, carry no purse, no bag, no sandals, greet no one on the road. You know, what is Jesus sowing here? Right. And
Well,
what does he
first,
hope? What
right,
does he hope is going to come out of this?
right. First, it's a very strong symbolism and comparison doing with farming. And so
Mm-hmm.
um, and if you go all the way back to Genesis with the seed of Abraham,
Yep.
if you looked at the stars, you will see all of your descendants. That the seed, if you will, is an important part of the entire Bible. So he's sending laborers out into the field to harvest.
Yep.
So there is that strong and direct connection. The the part of the Galatians letter that followed the section you and I were just talking about is that Paul is then telling them not to get weary, because farmers, it's the single act of farming isn't that hard, but it's the 10-hour days, it's the 7 days a week, it's the
Mm-hmm. It's the
constant having
constant.
to do it.
Mhm.
Like football is really really hard while you're playing it, but then you have 6 months off. Baseball is not nearly as physically taxing per game, but there's 162
There,
games.
you do not get 6 months off. Maybe if you lose, maybe you don't even make the playoffs, you get 6 months off.
So
There's there's there's
September,
off,
October, November, December, January, February.
right?
That's 6 months. But I mean, how many teams make it to February?
Right. But then listen, we're not going to go down this road because that's a whole other conversation. I'm just saying
Sure.
you're working out all the time during the off season. I'm just going to say that.
Well, they used to not, but now they do. Yeah, in the modern day.
In the 60s, they didn't. They were bellhops and used car salesmen and other things.
Right.
Moving
I mean,
back, you got me
in the
off.
1950s, the Yankees players used to sell shoes and that type of stuff during
They
the
do.
off season. But
I
anyway,
still have I still have a pair of shoes I bought from the Yankee Clipper. Um,
sorry,
but
where are we on this, folks? We
we're,
just took a hard right into
yeah. So coming
sports.
back to
Sorry
the
about that.
scripture here, the reason I say
Yeah.
what is Jesus sowing is because spiritually, with these servants that he's sending out, he is sowing for us today what the work should be, what the work should look like, and what the kingdom is about, which is going out to those places that the spiritual warfare is taking place, where the people need to hear the kingdom being proclaimed. And I think that's the example for us. That's why I've heard this text preached on the Chrism Mass on Tuesday of Holy Week,
Mhm.
right? Because we the clergy, of course, the layperson as well, but we the clergy are especially commanded to go and do these things. We've been sent out. So I think it's important just to recognize that the act of being sent out and the things that we send out into the world is also an act of sowing.
Wow. Yeah. So we've covered a whole bunch of varieties of ways of acts of sewing.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to share that picture that I sent, that I emailed you? Um,
Let me
and
let
while
me
you're
break.
looking at it, I will talk about it. So
Let me break it up.
we have a listener who she sent us a photo of a Scrabble board, and hopefully you all are familiar with how to play Scrabble, all the different letters and combinations that you can make. And so um, she was playing Scrabble, and they came up with this really cool word choice to look at. So in a moment, for those that are on YouTube, you can see what we're going to show.
And I'm
Maybe.
just going to maximize this picture here and share
And,
my screen for just a moment.
and through the magic of
And
this stuff.
through the magic,
Now, for those of you who are driving, do not look, but
for those of
keep
you
your
who are
eyes on the road
driving,
and your hands on the wheel,
do not
right? Because
look.
you do reap what you sow, especially when you're driving.
Exactly. And so, do you see it?
No.
Okay. So hold on. Okay. Um,
If we ever edited our episode, this would probably be it. So,
yeah. So,
would you
what?
like me to hold up the copy I have?
I'm gonna make this part of the thumbnail here, or you can make
All
your
right.
own. You can
All
make your
right.
own
So,
copy.
take a look at that. So this is it's spelled out. May God
Continue to bless a bridge between with Father Dave and Father Alex. Yeah.
Yep. It's really cool. We like
Yeah.
that. So
So I'll make that part of the thumbnail. Yeah.
okay,
Put that in
that'll.
there. Yeah.
But
So
reap what you sow. She, for whatever reason, did that, and then took a picture and emailed it to me, and I appreciate it.
that's a lot of
And
points,
I had
by
to
the way.
send it to Alex. What's that?
That's a lot of points she got
It's
for
a
that.
whole bunch of points that she got. Yeah. I would like to think that she was listening to Bridge Between while playing Scrabble, but
Well, well, as we come to the end of our time together, one of the things that we're looking forward to as this summer continues is we're planning some things for the fall. Definitely planning some things for winter, more Bible studies and things of that nature. But if you have an idea of something that you would like us to cover during this summertime, as some clergy will do with their preaching, talk about some topics, let us know in the comment section. I've been trying to do a little better about answering those comments, and we're just looking forward to continuing this ministry with you.
yes. So, Alex, thank you for helping me reap what I sow, and that is to pay attention to the lessons early in the week, because it makes for me to be a better preacher. And you have said the same thing.
I agree, and thank you for helping me reap what I sow, and may all the things that we reap be holy. Thanks a lot,
God
everyone.
bless.
We'll catch you in the next one.